You do your presentation as well from the Cabinet Office.
And apologies for having event and date in square brackets on the slides, so I hope you'll overlook that. If you're anything like me, you probably just overindulged in the lovely lunch downstairs, so I'll try and keep this a relatively rapid canter through what I've got to say, and hopefully we can have a bit more discussion around Q&A. Taking a step back then very quickly, that statement behind me is the Coalition Programme for Government commitment to supporting the creation and growth of mutuals, cooperatives, charities and social enterprises. I'm from the Mutuals Programme within Commercial Models and Cabinet Office, and the Mutuals Programme exists to support the mutuals, cooperatives part of that statement. So that's kind of our raison d'etre, if you will. I always start these presentations with just taking a step back and just explaining what we mean by mutual, because mutual as a term is something that doesn't really actually have a strict legal definition, and it's something that can have lots of different forms depending on the environment and the context it's working in. Behind me there is our three-pronged definition that we use. So it's an organisation that's spun out of the public sector, that continues to deliver public services as a whole or as a part of its purpose, and that involves a high degree of employee control. Now, when you're looking at that, you'll realise that is pretty broad, that is pretty permissive, and that's very deliberate because we took the view that actually in different contexts, in different service areas, different things will work well and different things will not work so well. The key thing here really is that we believe that putting staff at the heart of the way the enterprise is run actually helps improve the enterprise's performance. The other thing that's worth saying here also is that, again, as I said, very permissive. So this could be a range of different forms. Legally, it could be a community interest company. It could be a charity. It could be a community benefit society. A full range of models like that, and indeed it could also be some form of joint venture. Some of the things that Matthew was mentioning around multiple ownership joint ventures, behavioural insights team, we call that a mutual joint venture. So it's the full spectrum of things with these characteristics in common. Just to illustrate, again, one of the things that we want to sort of celebrate really in many respects is that the concept of public service mutual, or just mutual as we call it, really is kind of gaining, or maybe I can get away with saying has gained significant momentum. As you can see, in Q4 2010, there were 9 live and trading, currently well over 80, and projections for what we expect to see in this Parliament based on current levels of demand, the level of inquiries we have being made to our team. And this is coming from a huge number of spectrum of services. So actually, one of the things that you'll quite often hear the Minister of Civil Society, Nick Hurd, saying is that there seem to be very few places where this model isn't able to deliver some value and able to work, essentially. We have more mutuals developing across the range of the sectors you see behind me, and probably some more that actually are on there as well. So it's flexible and adaptive and responsive to kind of what works, really. Okay, so that was the bit of the opening gambit there. So why do we think mutuals are such a good thing? Why do we kind of promote them? Behind me are 5 things that we have picked out as being potential benefits that mutuals can offer, based on some of the evidence, some of the analytical work that we've seen. Firstly, service improvements, savings and efficiencies. The thing that's worth drawing out, and I said this at the outset, what's core to the mutual model, regardless of how it actually manifests, is putting the staff at the heart of it. And actually, I think most of us would recognise that public sector staff are incredibly passionate about what they do and are the experts at what they do. So on the back of that, a model which puts them in greater control and more in the driving seat actually is not a great leap to see how that can generate some benefits. And that's certainly where we see some of the service improvements coming through. Looking at the next 2, savings and efficiencies, high growth and additional contracts, the other thing that's worth drawing, I suppose, is that mutuals, although the vast majority of them that we are aware of are social enterprises, they're still commercial, they're still enterprises, they're still businesses. And actually, when you put staff at the heart of a business and give them a real stake in that business, then the evidence shows that staff start looking for savings and efficiencies at the grassroots level and start teasing some of those things out. We have anecdotes of almost on day one, staff members in a newly spun out mutual sticking up their hand and saying, why do we do this, can't we do this another way? And that made a saving of X number of thousands of pounds. It's just that kind of cultural change that can help bring some of these benefits. Just skipping down to the bottom two then, reduced staff turnover, low absenteeism. So again, not a great leap, I think, for me to say that when you give staff a real stake and say you are part of the community of owners of this business, to see why they may then feel more bought in, more engaged, and therefore see lower absenteeism and reduced churn. And actually, in terms of some of the staff surveys we've seen coming out of some of the larger mutuals that we've supported, it's really quite significant leaps in terms of how much people say they look forward to coming into work in the morning, how much they feel valued by their employer, and so on. This is one of the key, I guess, study that was carried out by the Boston Consulting Group, based on a survey of all live mutuals at the time, obviously a subset responder, so it's not representative of the entire cohort of over 80 that I mentioned, but nonetheless it's of a reasonable chunk. And just a few things to draw out, really. There's some stuff on there to back up the absenteeism figure that I was talking about. You'll notice that there's reduced churn again, and in blue in the top, something around savings, but I think also very interestingly about revenue and projected growth. And if we think 10% projected growth in one of the most challenging economic times of recent memory, I think that's seriously quite impressive. So this is just some of the kind of slightly crunchier stuff around why we think mutuals are actually quite a good idea. Looking then at what my team does to support this, we work across the areas you can see on the screen behind me. We have a number of what we call campaigns, which is where we've identified either a real demand or some real potential, where we do some targeted awareness and promotional work. Things at the moment we're looking at are services for young people, social care, both children and adults, that kind of thing. We also, slightly separate to that, do some kind of policy level work, working across central government. So, for example, I was very heavily involved in the probation mutuals piece that Matthew mentioned during his presentation. We have support for commissioners. We recognise that clearly the mutual model puts staff at the heart of the enterprise, but we can't support that kind of change without supporting the commissioners on the other end as well. So we have some support on that, and I'll come to that in a second. We also have the Mutual Information Service and the Mutual Support Programme, which are kind of the tangible support offer, and again I'll talk about that in a bit more. Stakeholder engagement is fairly self-explanatory. Okay, this is an indicative representation, of the kind of support offer that we have, an end-to-end support offer. We do have everything from kind of at one end we say the idea that you have in the bathtub, through to at the other end actually this is a fledgling business which has got some real legs, and how do we support this entity to grow and re-diversify its business. So, just taking you through then, I mentioned the front end, the website, Mutual Information Service. There's a link to that at the end of the slides. Potential staff groups can basically put their details in, and they can basically request a callback if they want to find out a bit more about the idea and what's on offer. The second stage is what we call our Mutual Success Training Programme, and that actually helps convert the idea in the bathtub, testing it and seeing if it's actually got any legs at all, and that's a 4-day training programme for potential leaders of a future enterprise. We've got one-to-one support, which is tailored technical support that the Cabinet Office buys on behalf of potential projects to help them through their journey, help them do the business planning work, help them do the staff engagement work, whatever that might be. And at the point of either just before spinning out or indeed just after, we have what we call Going for Growth, which recognises that a business has to grow in order to be sustainable, and that existing public sector leaders may require some support to build on their skill sets to take that work forwards. I think this is possibly my last slide, so I'm going to be okay in time. This is just, I talked a little bit in the abstract about some of the benefits that we know mutuals can help deliver. On the slide are just a few examples of some more tangible cases of where that's happened. I'm not going to talk through them one by one. Hopefully you can all see the slide, but really just a few things to draw out. There's a number of examples on there of growth and new business. These genuinely can act as engines of growth for local communities, and I think that's actually a very powerful message in the current context. We've got some very tangible examples of cash savings. Again, we're all very interested in that for obvious reasons. I'll highlight 3BM as it was the first mutual joint venture in the public sector, so it's part staff-owned and part employee-owned private sector company. And then the last thing I'll highlight at the bottom of Central Essex Community Services is the staff innovation resulted in iPad deployment. I'll just talk around that a little bit. In this case, they actually use iPads not only to report back to the headquarters more effectively, but also deliver therapeutic interventions to people in remote areas. So, and that was an idea that one of the staff members came up with, put their hand up and said, why don't we do this? Did the work on the kind of the costings and so on, and they got it pretty rapidly. I think this is an example of how, when empowered, when freed up from some of the constraints that currently that we all operate in, people come up with some bright ideas and probably get them implemented a lot faster than may happen in the traditional context. And that's just where you can go to find out more. Thank you very much.